Okay, for this week's project, we're going to be taking a look at this MCS 3249 AM/FM stereo receiver. And this unit belongs to a friend of mine whom I used to work with, but he transferred and went to another company, and so we hadn't seen each other for a while. So he texted me and asked me if I'd be interested in taking a look at this for him, and I told him to go ahead and bring it on over. He tells me that this has one channel working and one channel not working. Now this MCS stuff, of course, this was JCPenney's in-house brand under this MCS name back in the 80s. Of course, JCPenney does no longer sell any consumer electronics to my knowledge, and if they do, it's certainly not on this level. And according to the internet, which we know everything on the internet is true, every single piece of this equipment was supposedly made by Techniques. Now, I don't doubt that some of it is made by Techniques. I know I've seen some pieces that were made by Techniques, but this particular one, in my opinion, just based on what I'm seeing from the front panel here, does not look like Techniques or Panasonic. So, as always, we'll come in, we'll have a look at it, we'll take the lid off, and we'll kind of get an idea and see if we can determine who made it for them, and get some speakers hooked up and see if we can find out what's going on with it. Our intro music this week, we're listening to the classic album by Yes, the 90125 album, and this would usher in the Trevor Rabin years. And when he showed up on the scene, he would bring a notebook full of songs that they would turn into this album. And to date, this is their best-selling album ever. Everyone always references Owner of a Lonely Heart when thinking about this album, but Changes is my favorite song from this. So let's hear a little bit of that, and then we'll get started on the receiver over here.
Trying to find out how there's no way to save it now. When everything I feel changes, keep looking for changes, changes.
All right, coming back in, let's have a look at the unit. We'll start over at the left-hand side, where they'll give you a manual power switch, speakers A and B, provisions for 2 sets of speakers. Of course, there's a 1/4-inch headphone jack there. As for the tone, they're going to give you all 3. You're going to get bass, mid-range, and treble. You get a tone defeat and a high filter switch, both of which she has turned on for some reason. You're getting a detinted volume control as well as a rear detinted balance control. Loudness and FM mono stereo button. Monitors for 2 tape decks and dubbing between the 2, so they're going to give you the dubbing feature built in here. And then the function switch for AM, FM, phono, and auxiliary. And this is where it gets a little muddy for me right here. This would be the first indication that we're really not dealing with Techniques. I don't ever remember Techniques doing anything like this back in the day, but they're going to give you the 6 presets for your digital tuner, and then of course a tuning up and down. And this button at one time would have had some spring to it, and I'm sure there was either some foam behind it or something, or both of the switches are just bad and they don't have any push to them anymore. And then a manual and automatic scan button. 3 LEDs, you're going to get power, FM stereo, and quartz lock, along with a 5 LED signal meter. And then here we have a left channel and right channel, which I'm going to assume is power meters, but yet it's not labeled with any type of wattage output here. It just simply goes from 1 to 5 and is labeled left and right. So I'm going to assume that's what it is. Come up over the top, start in the amplifier section. This is using NEC outputs. It's a very nicely laid out amplifier section. You're going to get UPC 1225 preamp chips. I assume that's what they're using those for. And amplifier does have controls for idle current adjustment. It's not anything that's self-governed. Transformer in the back, power supply board. Power supply caps are looking to be Panasonic. Can't really tell from this vantage point, but that's what it looks like those are. Tuner board, lots of components there, as they all did back in the day. And then, of course, I'm sure there's some tone preamp circuitry towards the front, and then, of course, there's the switch assembly for the presets. Now let's flip it around to the back. If you don't already know who makes this, this will tell the tale of who really makes it. It's going to give you your jacks for the phono, the auxiliary, and the 2 tape monitors, tape in and tape out for both. A switched and unswitched outlet, and then speaker connections for both sets of speakers. Of course, these are red and black techniques back in the day. To my knowledge, it was yellow and black. And then, of course, we have the serial code and date code, but right above that, that's something that we want to pay attention to, and that's the FCC ID, which is A3D. And of course, A3D is NEC, or Nippon Electric Company, Tokyo, Japan. So definitely an NEC unit, not a Techniques unit. And I just happened to know that because I serviced quite a bit of JCPenney's equipment back in the day, and quite a few of their VCRs were made by NEC as well as Hitachi. And if you ever worked on those VCRs, then you probably know that they had a couple of pretty famous problems. One was the tape guides would always break loose out of the bases they sit in, and some of their VCRs had a special effects module built into it where it would split screen the picture or give you a picture-in-picture type effect or add some type of mosaic effect to the picture. And those modules would always crap out, and you would have to replace the whole module, which was pretty costly if I remember correctly. So maybe that's a mental note. Purchase NEC VCR. Go back in time and see if I can actually repair one of those modules. I never really tried back in the day. We just replaced them if they were bad. So anyway, he says we got one channel working and one channel not. So let's go ahead and get some speakers hooked up. Let's get it fired up, and let's see what it will do. So give me a second for that, and we'll come back. Well, he is right. There is definitely one channel not working. And of course, the meters reflect that as well. Now, in the process of looking this over, I did notice that we do have a couple of speaker fuses, and one of them is blown. Or one appears to be blown anyway. So I think that's going to be the first thing we're going to take a look at. And in the previous clip, I believe I said Techniques speaker connectors were yellow and black. I believe orange and black was what they were, I believe. But definitely not yellow. Looks pretty good, all lit up with all the LEDs. Nice green display tube there. That's very reminiscent of, I owned a Realistic Star 2250, I believe it was a 2250, or 2290, and it had that. No, 2250 had that one. That was basically, looked like the same exact tube in it. And this does work. You have to push it hard, because there ain't any foam there anymore, but it does work. All right, let's go ahead and let's kill the power, and I think the first thing we probably want to do is let's have a look at the fuses and make sure that that is blown. It looks blown. And we'll pull the plug on the unit at the same time. And we might get lucky, and it might just be a blown fuse. But if we do get lucky, I think it'll be the first time on my video, because I don't get lucky. I always have to do something crazy. We got one good one and one that is completely open. And what is this? A 4 amp fuse, so we're not just going to throw another one in there. I can't tell what type of blow. It's not black, obviously, but we're not just going to throw another one in there. Let's go ahead and run the outputs real quick. I don't know what side that fuse corresponds to, so we'll just do all of them. Let's see if we can spot any kind of short. No trouble there. So I'm going to assume there's no trouble here. And there is not. So if we make it past this, we should be good. And we are good. We are good. All right, so let's go ahead and we will drop another 4 amp fuse in there, and we'll see if it comes back to life for us. The worst case scenario, we just blow the fuse again and maybe take out something else in the process. I have all of my fuses in my parts drawers labeled as to what they are, but I always double check. And this is a 4. Yes, this is a 4. So we'll leave the fuse right there, or the camera right there, and let's turn it back on. And if it blows, I guess we'll know there was something else wrong.
That murky green
There we
stuff
go.
may not seem very useful, but it could be of energy. That's why ExxonMobil and Synthetic Genomics are developing biofuels from algae, so that the trucks, ships, and planes that drive our economy could one day run on algae biofuels with half the greenhouse of today's fuels, keeping transportation humming while cutting emissions. Learn more at energyfactor.com. Ugh, those nachos were rough on my stomach. When you have...
Well, aside from just having the controls clean, they do need to be cleaned a little bit. It looks like the only thing going on here is just a blown speaker fuse. I did notice back in the power supply, one of the fuses is a little not quite sitting in the fuse holder correctly, so I want to take care of that too. So let's push that down in there correctly. So I think what we'll do, let's go ahead and let's get it cleaned up, get it blown out, and then we will see how easy it's going to be for us to access the volume control. All the rest of the controls seem to be pretty silent.
A message from
Wall Street banks during the recession. So
That has definitely got some static in it, so that's going to now need to be addressed. So I don't know if we can get to that from the bottom of this anyway, but I still want to take the bottom off of it. I want to look at the connections in the amplifier section and see if there's anything that qualifies as a cold solder joint. I can't see, but I think our volume control is right there, maybe. Maybe right there. Can't really tell. It's pretty dark in there. But we'll find it and we'll get it cleaned up. So give me a minute for that, and we'll get it cleaned up, and we'll clean the volume control, and we'll come back and do another test on it. And I'm interested in taking this off too. Let's see if there's anything I can do about this. I don't know if there is. Maybe I can find some kind of foam to put behind it to kind of shim it up to where it's not leaning to one side or the other. But other than that, it looks like we're doing okay. So give me a minute for that and we'll come back. All right, as we come back in, went over this a couple of times and just don't see anything. Nothing that has any excessive heat stress on it. Of course, this magnifying light is not going to show you as much as I can see looking through the magnifier, but there isn't anything here that's even remotely bad. One of the main things you would look at is right there on those 1225 ICs. And there's quite a bit of flux there from the factory, but all the connections are just fine. There isn't any issue at all with those. None that I see anyway. Let's see. No, those all look pretty good. I don't see any issue at all there. Connections around the relay look good. Let's see. Relay connections are right there off the fuses. And those look pretty good. If you were being particular, maybe, but those still look pretty good. Power supply, same deal. Everything here looks pretty good. Don't see nothing. Obviously had a pretty easy life. There's some power supply components right here. If I was going to touch up anything, I'd probably touch up that transistor right there, maybe. But hell, that doesn't even really look that bad. I tell you what, let's, just for the hell of it, let's check the idle current on this and see how it compares from side to side. So give me a second for that, and I'll throw the camera in the tripod for that one. All right, so as we come back in, basically what we got going on, laid the meter sideways so we can kind of get that in the shot. Millivolt setting, and I have a couple of quick jumper leads clipped on to the two test points coming off the emitter resistor. And this one's reading 14.9 millivolts. And I would imagine that this is probably supposed to be ran at 10 millivolts. But I'm going to jump to the other side, and if the other side matches pretty close to this, then we'll set them both at 15. So if this one over here on this side favors 10 more than 15, then whichever one it favors is the one that we'll set it to. I don't have a service manual, but it isn't rocket science either. So I'm trying to do this live here. Do it without shorting anything out. There is one. And there's the other. So this one's reading 16.6. So what we're going to do is we're going to back this one down to 15. So let's get a tool for that. And at times I actually do use a plastic tool. I've got a plastic tool. So let's back that one down to 15. And this has been on for a few minutes. And that's what they tell you to do, so wait till it's on for a few minutes. Only thing is that that plastic tool doesn't get in the control as good as a regular tool does. That control is kind of sitting in a weird spot anyway. All right, let's get rid of the plastic tool and let's go to a metal one so we can actually get to it and make the adjustment. Hell, that's probably the reason why. Got the wrong tool. There we go. I'm going to imagine that in the service manual it probably has a plus or minus. 1 or 2 millivolts. Ooh, so close. You can tell it was sitting in that spot right there. I'm just going to kind of work this back and forth. See if I can get that spot. Get it right in that spot. Damn, that is touchy. I mean, really touchy. Yeah, 15.1, I'm going to be good with that. All right.
All time. It's taken in about 500.
Okay. Now we'll compare it. We'll go back to the other side and make a comparison to the other side. Now that side is 16.1. So do we mess with it too? Sure, why not? Very touchy. I think we're going to be okay with that. 15.1, so we're going to say that they were both 15. Because that was the number they were both closest to. Let's check the other one again real quick. It's probably drifted a little bit. But again, we're going to make the assumption that the service manual did say 15 volts plus or minus. And we're at 14.9. Good enough. I think we're good. I'm going to go ahead and get the volume control cleaned. We're going to get the inside of it cleaned out. And we'll be ready to wrap this one up for a very quick, easy repair. Well, I guess we want to take out the tuning board. So I'll clean the volume control, get the inside of it cleaned out, and we'll remove the switches for the preset tuning and see if there's anything we can do about the tuning up and down. So give me a second for that and we'll come back. All right, so we're gonna pick back up and got this unit nice cleaned up. No static in our controls, everything's working real good. Got the interior cleaned up. Everything's looking almost brand new on the inside of this thing, looking real good. And where we wind up with this, unfortunately, is these sponges were basically glued to the perimeter of the switch casing, and then as the button pushed in, the sponge was used to push it back out, basically, and almost like a spring. And our best look at that is right here. We can kind of get a better understanding of what's going on. You can see how this one is down here, but they're all just deteriorated, and there is nothing that can be done quickly and simply and cheaply. I already know the owner does not want to spend any money for anything like this. He's fine with using the buttons the way that they are. This is just a thing with me being picky. If there was a quick way I could do it, I would do it, but there just isn't. One possibility, if money was no object and time was no object, one possibility would be to eliminate all of these switches altogether and just put different switches in there that are tactile, and as soon as you push on them, it'll pop itself back out. That'd be one way to do it. Or maybe add some springs to the button. You could possibly add springs to these. Just buy some springs and put springs here maybe. But no quick and easy way to do it, so we're going to go ahead and put this back in the unit and get ready to button it up. So give me a minute for that and we'll come back and finish up. Well, as we bring to a close the JCPenney MCS 3249 receiver, I want to thank you guys again for checking out my videos. You know what, I got to thinking about this button. First, I got it all back in there and I couldn't stand the fact that it was leaning to one side. And so I was like, well, what can I do for a quick fix to get this one taken care of? The other ones don't matter because you can't tell. They're not leaning to one side or the other. And so what I wound up doing was I grabbed one of these old Pioneer optical pickup assemblies, and in particular I was looking for these, which are the damping boots for the screws that hold it into the chassis. And as it turns out, that hole perfectly slides right over that switch and makes for a beautiful operation of that button. Pops it right back out where it's supposed to be, no trouble. Looks like it's supposed to be there, so I think we're done with this one. And surprisingly enough, a quick fix. I usually never get a quick one, and so I'm gonna enjoy this moment. Blown speaker fuse, no real cold solder joints to even be concerned with. Obviously the receiver's had a pretty easy life. It doesn't look like there's ever been any excessive abuse to this. Fairly clean on the inside, or at least it is now. Just a little surface dust had to be blown out of it. And other than that, little control cleaning and fixing that button just so it would look right. So anyway, again, thank you guys very much. I appreciate it, and we'll catch you on the next one.
They'd soon be